Y'all know what it is.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Eggs. Today's special guest is sales and mindset coach Isaac Ho. Isaac has pioneered an approach to coaching that not only addresses sales and mindset skills, but also includes an emotional and physical health aspect that has helped his clients achieve double to triple their income, all while maintaining peace of mind both inside and outside their business. From his early days as a 17-year-old health coach at the YMCA to owning his own gym at 22, always the consummate professional, Isaac's developed a passion for helping people achieve what he calls unsolvable problems. He's discovered that a key factor in achieving goals is being mentally and physically healthy, and that is every bit as important as skill development. He's committed his life to moving entrepreneurs out of overwhelm and fatigue, helping them instead to create lifestyles of freedom and joy. Joining us today for a conversation with topics ranging from overcoming burnout and mastering high-ticket sales to building a seven-figure business without sacrificing your physical or mental well-being. Please join us in welcoming to the show, Isaac Ho. Hey, Isaac, how are you?
I'm well, man. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing well. Hey, thanks for joining us. This is a conversation that I'm looking forward to. Actually, Mike and I were talking a little bit before the show. There's some business stuff going on in my world specifically that is very applicable to the kind of work you do. So we're really excited to just kind of talk about it. And I think, given sort of your ability to help entrepreneurs and me being one, we might even be able to sort of do kind of a real life role play here or something. So it could be really
cool. That'd be perfect. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
So Isaac, before we get going, let's get a little bit about your background. You're from Lakewood, Washington. Is that correct?
Yeah, I currently live in Lakewood, Washington. I grew up, my dad was actually in the Air Force. He was an Air Force physician. So I was actually born in Ogden, Utah, over there by base.
McCord Air Force Base is where you ended up.
Yeah, I ended up at McCord.
Yeah, I'm a Washington native, grew up just on the other side of the bridge in Gig Harbor. So you're in my stomping grounds.
That's funny. That's actually where my dad moved from. He had his own practice in Seattle, and then we moved to Gig Harbor. So I grew up in Gig Harbor, and I left because, as you know, in Gig Harbor, there's like no gyms there.
Yeah.
so there's no gyms there. So as a personal trainer, I was like, well, hard to be a trainer here. So I moved across the bridge. That's how I ended up over here in Lakewood.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's kind of Lakewood's kind of a sketchy place in some areas, so you better be careful.
Yeah. Fortunately, I live right next to the Oakbrook Golf Course, so it's pretty nice.
Nice. Well, good deal.
Bad. Well, and ironically, I'm in Salt Lake City, so we're very near Ogden, actually. So,
wow.
Pretty funny. It's you're sort of checking both the boxes today.
That's perfect. I was just in Salt Lake a couple months ago, actually, for an event.
Nice. Skiing, I hope.
Yeah. No, it was a therapy event, but had a great time, and yeah, I love it there. You guys are so open. Like it's like COVID doesn't exist over there.
Yeah, no, it's totally Wild West here. I was talking to some friends we have in Spain, and they're just barely coming out of lockdowns again for like their third or fourth lockdown. And I'm like, yeah, no, we haven't had anything for like a year. And they're just like, sad day. So anyway, so for good or for bad, yeah, it's totally Wild West out here. So let's get into a little bit about your background. Obviously, we know a little bit about you, so we can sort of riff. But for the people listening, will you tell us just a little bit about your background, where you are, and what you do?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what I do is I help six-figure entrepreneurs overcome feeling plateaued and burnt out, so they can have the ultimate lifestyle freedom and health. And that's what I do. Really, it comes from having to solve my own problem. My first initial problem I had growing up was I was overweight, and my brother had this killer fast metabolism. We're literally 13 months apart. My brother's birthday is December 21st, mine's January 1st. And so it's like we were like best buds. And then something happened where I ended up getting really big and he stayed really skinny. And we ate the same exact food, just different metabolisms. And by the time I was in the third grade, I weighed 155 pounds. Wow. It was pretty good weight for an 8-year-old. And that was the first problem I had to solve. And I remember the experience of every summer, and Gig Harbor can be lovely. It's right by the water. Is I would always wear a sweater. I didn't want anyone to see what I look like underneath all my rolls. I know in my man boobs is how I experienced them. And really, really just was like, wow, am I going to go into high school feeling like this for the rest of my life? And decided I wasn't. And I made some changes. I did as much research as I could about health and fitness. That's really how I got started in health and fitness, was solving that problem for myself. And then as I decided I wanted to help people with that problem, I realized, wow, I have a lot of other problems. I remember my first client, her name was Heather, my first personal training client. And she was a single mom, working all the time, really wanted to be in a relationship. And she wanted to improve herself so she would be more attractive, so she'd be more desirable and really love herself. And I realized that doing physical development wasn't just physical, it was really personal development. And the problems that I started to help people solve and solve for myself were the ones that I started to see. And as I grew the business and as I started to have a team and as I started to have more desires in my life, I got married and I have a 2-year-old son. I realized that there are more problems that as business owners, we take on, and we can create our plateaus and we can feel burnt out. And that's really why I do what I do, was from a young age having these what felt like unsolvable problems and a high desire to solve them.
Yeah,
That's
I love
amazing.
that. I think that's a really great story. And, and I'm actually just sort of reflecting on my own life. I've always carried some extra weight, and I have a young son right now that's sort of struggling as well. We have one boy who's tall and skinny, and the other boy is built more like me. I mean, he's going to be tall, he's in all that, but he's going to carry some extra weight. And so we're constantly working on this weight loss stuff, right? And I would say that we're not actually doing all that well, but we sure try. And so it's really interesting or cool to hear a story like yours that began so young, but you found it within yourself. And I think that that's a good point to talk about, is that, not, I mean, you can learn things from coaches and people can tell you things, but ultimately this whole thing is self-improvement. It is, you have to buy into the message, or you have to buy into what you're trying to do if you want to find success. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, well, 100%, Brian. It's like, the techniques are free, man. You can go Google them. They're online. And so losing weight it's not a strategy issue. It's a mindset issue. It's a mindset of how they think about it. They have to think about it a certain way that successful people in their health think about health. And if they don't think about it that way, they just ride the roller coaster of lose some weight, gain some weight, lose some weight, gain some weight. A lot of times people say, well, it's lifestyle. Well, lifestyle is determined by decisions you make, and decisions you make are made because of your beliefs. And so if your beliefs aren't attuned to the kind of beliefs and mindsets that create health, then all the strategy in the world becomes irrelevant.
So when you initially started training and took on that first client, that had to be kind of hard for you, coming as someone that, was struggling with those issues yourself. And now you're actually teaching people how to get past those issues. How much of it is essentially just having someone like a coach or someone like, your students holding you accountable, and vice versa, to stay on the right path? I mean, there seems to be like it's easy for someone to kind of just, live their own life, do their own thing, eat whatever cheeseburger they want, do what they want. But once you have that other person kind of holding you accountable, it kind of seems to change things a little bit and helps a ton, I think. Can you maybe walk through that first couple clients in the first year of actually coaching, and how your life changed and how you learned as a coach to help people?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question. When it came to me, really, like, I had reached the body composition I really wanted at that point, like in terms of weight. So, I was 155 pounds when I was 8. By the time I got to being 18, 19, which is when I really started working with clients, I was still only 155 pounds. I managed to keep the weight off. And so I was doing kickboxing, I was doing all these other things. And the clients that I attracted at that point were really clients that wanted to lose body fat. So I had lost the body fat. I could teach them the lessons. I could teach them the thinking around the discipline. And so that's generally who I attracted. Then I ran into a different issue, which was, I was like, okay, I'm a 155-pound male. That's not exactly the king of the dating pool. So I was like, I want to date, I want to date the top tier women that I desire. And so I transformed. I said, I got a second transformation. It's always a constant growth process. So for me at that point, it was, how do I put on lots of muscle? How do I become really like visually, aesthetically pleasing for the kind of people that I want to be with? And so then I went on a different journey. So it's kind of like when we take clients on, let's say in a business realm, sometimes it's like, okay, first you got to get profitable. Great. So you've got to identify what are the services you're really passionate about selling, and can you sell them? So then once you can do that, well, do you always want to be in your business, or do you want it to be passive? So then can you develop a team and train them to duplicate what you're doing so you can step away from the business? So there are just different levels, and health and fitness, it's really the same. Like currently what I really specialize in helping clients with is we've done the body composition. We can help them lose fat. If they want to gain muscle, we can help them gain muscle. And the area that my team really focuses on helping people with now is really the lifestyle and holistic health, but also a lot of work around their blood chemistry. So like, is this person someone who long-term is going to be around for their family because they actually have good blood levels? A lot of people don't really know how to read those. So the goal changes, and depending on the goal, use a different method. But one of the things that you said earlier that I really love is your clients, they're in your experience because they're really trying to teach you the lessons. You're either there to teach them or they're there to teach you. And so whether it's like, wow, I'm addicted to cheeseburgers, and I happen to meet a client who says, hey, help me, I'm addicted to cheeseburgers. That's perfect, because the client, you're attracting them. They're already there, and they're attracted to you because of the lessons you need to learn and the lessons they need to teach you, and you teach them. And there's always a beautiful harmony around that.
I love that. Can you maybe break down the blood analysis portion that you just mentioned? Because that really intrigues me. I've thought about kind of going and doing some tests and just trying to see what I should or shouldn't be doing in the past. And I've done as much as maybe doing the Google search. So if you could break that down a little more, I would appreciate it.
Yeah. I'd love to, it can be, I could talk about it all day. It can be really complex, but I'll just kind of share my story of how I got into it. So like just eating like broccoli and chicken, all these things like asparagus, you think like all these healthy things like, oh, I'm just going to be like really shredded. I'm going to be really healthy. And what I ran into was I actually had, and it's kind of embarrassing, but for a while I was like, I don't know what's going on, but my butt always itches. My butt always itches. I've got itchy booty hole. I cannot sleep. I've got a new son. I was like, am I having like a neurotransmitter hormone issue from having a new baby? And so I went on this search. I hired all these top end coaches. I hired another set of coaches. They made all these recommendations. And what I actually ended up discovering after working with all these coaches that actually stopped the itching was I created a bacterial overgrowth from actually eating too much, what's called fructooligosaccharides, which are the stalk of the asparagus, the stalk of the broccoli. They're basically a complex molecule structure that doesn't break down in your gut effectively. And so bacteria feeds it. So if you've got excessive levels of bacteria, it will actually create all sorts of issues for you. And it's not something that most people know how to look for, is one of the things. So I'd gone and tried to find a lot of answers. And essentially what I discovered is that the ranges, and even more, I had someone that worked for me that was just a fantastic human being, really my best friend. And she passed away at 36.
I'm sorry.
And she passed away, and she had gone to doctors. They'd done blood panels, and they're like, yeah, you're overweight. So of course you're having these problems. And when they did her autopsy, they found she had enlarged liver. She had enlarged heart. She basically became type 1.5 diabetic. So she wasn't able to process blood sugar anymore. And she passed out by herself, hit her head on the toilet, and died. And these kind of things just baffled me, because I was like, how did she go pay for all this testing, go to see all these professionals, and now she's no longer on the planet anymore? And what I realized and what I learned down the road by trying to solve this problem for myself is that the ranges that your doctor's using, and my dad and I talk about this a lot, well, the ranges your doctor's using are ranges based off giving you pharmaceuticals. So if you're not in the range to give you, let's just say, metformin, okay, if they look at your blood sugar, they go, oh, your blood sugar's high. You got to get a little healthier, right? Like your doctor says that. So then go hire someone to get that better. Or if you don't fix that, I'm going to have to put you on drugs. So you come back and they go, this is your last warning. You're about to get drugs. And then boom, you go back and now you're on metformin for life. Let's just say that's the scenario, because they're using a range that's designed to really look at, like, do you need this drug or not? Now, the ranges that you actually need to use for, let's just say, are you healthy and do you have other problems? Those are different ranges. Those aren't medical ranges. Those are ranges used by different kinds of providers. And so when someone goes to get blood work and you want to see, okay, like, for example, CO2, we'll just talk about a really simple one like carbon dioxide, CO2. Well, you need that enough oxygen in order to create hydrochloric acid. If you don't have enough of that, you cannot digest your food, which means if it's sitting in there rotting, what's going to happen is you're going to feed whatever bacteria is really, really advantageous. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so using different kind of correlations, you can figure out what the conversion problems people are having, the kind of liver stress they're having. You can basically help somebody make these changes before they're stuck on medications, or unfortunately, like my friend, before they pass away and they end up with some of these life-altering conditions.
Yeah, that's amazing. I never really, like realized that there's that much involved in just like your oxygen levels or this or that can affect your body's an amazing thing is what I'm trying to say. and it's neat that you can break that down and help people kind of take those steps necessary before now you're on insulin, now you need this, now you need that. And I've seen that happen in my own life with family members where now they're taking 8 pills a day, and if they stop with one, it affects the other, and it's like they're playing this juggling act. And I'm trying to avoid that if possible.
Yeah. And that's definitely, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I love doing these kind of interviews and these kind of shows, because, as entrepreneurs, we get so focused on, like, I have a client that is a $20 million company, but if he's not around for his family because of the kind of problems that are going on, then he is never going to get to really enjoy what he's built.
Love that.
And that was the situation that I found myself in, is I built this company, but I did not have the lifestyle, the habits, the way of being to really actually enjoy and have fun in my life. And so what did I really build it for? And I find with a lot of entrepreneurs, they will work really hard. They will be, entrepreneurs are some of the hardest working people on the planet. You can put 12 hours in, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. And something as simple as, let's say, for example, like if you ever heard of adrenal fatigue, like people burn themselves out. Well, you can actually test for how close you are to that. Most people don't know that. You can do salivary, they can test your saliva for how much you have in reserve. So I could literally work with the client and say, hey, just based off where you're at, I can tell you that you're probably headed to burnout in about 3 months. And if we don't start making some changes, you're going to have a hard time waking up. You're going to be reaching for more coffee. You're going to be throwing it back. You're going to feel very little get up and go, and you're just really going to struggle. And we can just make some simple changes to create a buffer and allow you to keep building your business without losing kind of where you're headed right now. And, those are the kind of things that I think most people just don't know about. And so, one day they just say, I had to stop everything and it wasn't worth it. And for me, I go, well, it's really about, and like, you can have both, but you have to have enough awareness around the problem to be able to have both. If you only build it one way, then it will catch up to you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, most people, I run with a lot of entrepreneur types, and very rarely do you hear them talking about any of this kind of stuff, right? Most of them are nose down in their business and they're doing all they can to get the work done, myself included, but, often pay a little credence to our own maintenance, taking care of ourselves. I would like to jump back real quickly to something that Mike said when he'd asked his last question, where he was talking about your going into work as a trainer after having struggled with weight loss yourself. And I think that there's something interesting in there around mindset and around, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome. So this is obviously something that a lot of people deal with, a lot of entrepreneurs and people in general, even when they're trying to maybe change their lives or change their business, they struggle with their own personal image of who they are, or, maybe I'm not known as the fitness guy, so it would be weird if I started running every day. So instead, I'm just not going to run every day. And so, so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about overcoming sort of that imposter syndrome, basically being able to say, okay, well, I struggled with my weight loss. That makes me qualified to do this coaching versus the alternative where I was heavy. What do I have to tell people?
Yeah, I love that question, Ryan. I remember being at a personal training convention where all the trainers are sitting around there. And if just picture, like, close your eyes, you're a trainer, you walk into a room, it's all these other trainers. Just imagine what they all look like, all the different body shapes. And people start getting insecure right away. Can you picture that? It's like, oh my gosh, look at that guy's arms. Look how shredded. Oh, look how big those guys, it's like, look how big that guy is. Like, I just saw that guy lift 800 pounds. And so the comparison becomes so severe. And that happens in the entrepreneur world as well. And the thing that really helped me is when I thought about it, and it was like, someone said this to me and I don't forget it. They said, would you rather have, if you had to go fight Evander Holyfield, would you rather have Mike Tyson train you for a day or Mike Tyson's boxing trainer train you for a day? And it was like, it became so clear to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's like Mike Tyson is an athlete. He's just abnormal, but his boxing trainer creates athletes. And so really what you want to think about is, because you struggle, it gives you the authority to teach. And I've seen this with so many trainers. There'll be trainers that are just naturally genetically super gifted. They look fantastic. They really struggle to coach people because it comes so easy for them. They don't have to think about putting their body in the right position. They don't think about some of them don't even have to think about their nutrition. I remember there's this one guy, he was like 50 and he was shredded. And he's like, you know what my secret is? He went, McDouble hamburgers. I just eat McDoubles every day after I train arms. Tried it with his clients, definitely didn't work. But like, it's like, and he couldn't get it because it came so easily to him. And so to really be someone who trains people, to be someone who can generate a result for people, to actually have the struggle yourself and be able to work with people that are struggling, that's such a huge gift. And the problem that we really want to solve for the world is the problem that we've had to solve for ourselves. And that's what gives us the authority. It's not just being great at it. It's not having a natural disposition to it, because those people are uncompetently competent. And an incompetent, as someone who's unconsciously competent, they can't articulate how to teach you. And this is really common in sales. There'll be a lot of people that are sales trainers and they're just naturally good at sales. So like, hire me for sales coaching, but they actually don't know all the things that go into them being good at sales. And so when their clients struggle, they really don't have an approach for how to approach that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think it makes a lot of sense because, it's just, I also think, a lot of times this imposter syndrome idea is just a excuse or fear or something, versus even really being real, right? So a lot of times we're holding ourselves up for some other undetermined condition or some other reason rather than just, and imposter syndrome is easy to say because it's kind of the thing du jour. So I think that's a great, the way you've laid it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're resonating with it. And I think, it's really interesting. Like, my wife's an entrepreneur as well. And she doesn't do the exact same thing as me, but we both do coaching and consulting. I'll watch the clients that she brings in.